Well, here is the fourth thunderstorm in 3 days. Sure cooled things off too. It's nighttime now. We had our big thunderstorm and now it's cooled off. It's about 22 degrees Celsius and a full moon up there. Tomorrow is going to be hot once again.
Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Well, today is the day I'm going to repot my yucca forest. It's a very hot day today. It's going to be hot in the greenhouse, but I think it's a good time to repot the yuccas. Here is a look at the yucca forest. So I haven't repotted this forest since I put it together in 2017. So 7 years ago. And every year the growth has gotten a little more compact. You can see the leaves are quite tiny on it now. And that's just because it is so root bound in this pot. You can see that the trees are starting to tilt because it's building up a mass of roots in here. And you can see how much the trees are lifting out of the pot. This pot is full of roots and the surface of the soil here is full of roots. You can actually see the roots on the surface here. So it's definitely, time to repot this forest. When my kids were young, I was taking them to swimming lessons the one day. We walked down to the pool, and at the end of a driveway there's these two really tall yucca trees, a couple of meters tall, and they were lying there bare-rooted in the hot sun, and they'd been there for several days. So I thought, well, if the trees are still there after the swimming lessons, I would pick them up and take them home, and I did that. I potted them up individually, the two trees, and I cut the tops off them, reducing them down to kind of stumps. And I wasn't sure if you could create a bonsai out of a yucca tree, so I looked online and I found some good examples of yucca bonsai in Mexico, some quite nice ones with big canopies, and they look quite attractive. So I went ahead with the potting of them and developing them into bonsai. So the main two trees were the ones I found, and all the rest of the trees in this forest are cuttings off of those trees. They grow from cuttings quite easily. You just cut off the branch, stick it in soil in the summertime, and they should root. So they definitely need repotting. The vigor of the trees has kind of been declining over the last few years because they're so pot bound. So I think they'll like getting into some fresh bonsai soil, get those roots sorted out once again, and get them back on track. The temperature in the greenhouse at the moment is about 45 degrees Celsius. So it's quite warm in here, but it's also very humid today. So I think it's good weather for repotting yuccas. All right, here I go. I'm going to try and get the trees out of the pot. And this pot was from Japan. George, a former club member, he's passed away now, carried this in his lap on the plane from Japan, and after he passed away I bought the pot off his wife. So it's a nice pot. So there we go, the trees are out of the pot, and so here is a look at the roots. They are absolutely packed in here. Wow. It's going to be difficult combing them out, I think. I'll have to do a lot of root pruning. So here I go. I'll get my root rake, and I'm going to start with the end of the root rake and just sort of untangle the roots, because I think they'll be quite packed in there. And I think the first step is just sort of untangling them, teasing them out. And I don't know how well the camera will work in this heat. Sometimes in the heat the autofocus goes funny. Sometimes the camera overheats and I have to cool it down. And yeah, it could be a bit of a problem today. It's so hot in here. But we'll see what happens. So even if I have to hard prune these roots back, like I said, yuccas grow quite easily from cuttings. So if I have to take the root base, you know, really far back, it should recover no problem and start growing again. So I didn't water these yuccas this morning because I knew I was going to be repotting it, so they're a little on the dry side. But that's fine. Yuccas can take periods of drought. They're very tough trees. So far I'm finding that the roots, although they're really packed in here, they're still, you know, fairly easy to comb out. The soil, you can still see the original soil in here. It's not like a brick of roots. It's actually pretty good. Yeah, so I'm just going to try and untangle all the roots, sort them out, and separate the, I think there's 5 trees. Yeah. I mentioned Kenneth's photos and videos of the yucca trees in Italy. I'll show you those while I'm doing this.
So this is a big yucca tree here in Italy. As you see, it has a severe cut. Well, multiple ones. And it's big, 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 big. Here we have it from another angle. Coming in. So here you see one cut, and it's healing over quite nicely, and we have a new little shoot here. So they definitely bud back on very old wood, and the same here at the gigantic cut. Again, little shoots. When we get down to the root base, it's gigantic, and the bark is flaky, and it's really big. So let's measure the width of the trunk. So that's 1 foot, 2 and 3, 4, almost 5. So I'll finish this with a picture so you can see the proportion. I'm not a giant, I'm not a small guy. Well, so this one is even bigger. There's a big cut right here, and here you see another cut with a little new shoot, and a really small shoot here. Yeah, in the Italian sun. And this is a close-up of quite big wounds with new shoots.
Over here in the sun is my yucca forest. So here it is, and I'll show you what's happening with it. Let's go down to the front here. So here's the main tree, and you can see here there's a lot of shoots coming out on it. Here, around here. I don't know if there's too many on the main trunk line. There's one back here on the main trunk line, but not a whole lot around the top cut point. On the side branch here, or trunk, there's a whole bunch of new shoots on it. It's just incredible. So I'm using the root rake now and combing out the soil from the roots, and it's, like I said, it's going quite well. It's a little easier than I expected this job to be. which is good. The original cut I did on these trees, yuccas don't kind of heal over very well, but it has healed and it's gone quite natural looking, that original cut. And once I get the tree out of this, separated from the rest, I'll show you all the big cuts I did initially on the two trees, so you can get an idea of what to expect in healing. The second tree here, this one, it actually, the original cut, which was here, is completely healed over. There's just a bit of a hollow in there now. So it was quite amazing. It's, from big stumps, they've healed over well and are starting to look very natural. I've kept these trees cool in the winter in the basement, and I've also kept them in the plant room for the winter, and they don't seem to mind either treatment. They're amazing trees. They can be outside down to just until we get frost. They can go right down to almost freezing. They survive in the hot sun. They can take watering. They're just very tough and fairly easy to grow trees. They don't look like a traditional bonsai, but my goal is to make them look like yucca trees. I think I'm ready to try and separate some of these trees. So here I go. And it's just a matter of kind of wiggling it, pulling it away from the other roots. Like that. So there's my smallest one that was grown from a cutting. And it was just like a cylinder at first. It had no flare at the base, had no taper. It was just a cylinder in a pot. And it's starting to look better now. So that's good to see. So I found the roots on this yucca that, when they dry out, they die. And then I guess in wet periods they quickly put out new roots. So there's a mixture of kind of dead, dried up old roots in here and fresh new ones. I've got two of the trees separated. So here's a look at the root base on them. It's not too bad. So I'm working on, what am I working on? This one over here. Trying to get the third little one separated. So I'm just trying to kind of untangle the roots here, and then we'll give that a pull apart too. It worked on the last two, so it should work on this one. So here I go. I'm going to try and separate this one now. Kind of twist and pull, and hopefully all the roots come with it. Yeah. Not too bad a looking tree. So now I just have the two big ones to separate here. And that'll require a bit more sorting out of the roots before I can do that. So I'll work away and then we'll come back and try and get the two big trees separated. Now, are these two trees wiggling at all? Yeah, they're wiggling. I think I can separate them now. So here I go. I'm going to try to anyway. Wiggle them around. There, it's coming now. Okay. They are separated. Wow, big root bases on these trees. Big root bases. So here's the back of the tree, and I'll show you a close-up of the original cut I did. So here it is here. So you can see the original cut I did on an angle here, and then, it didn't heal over this original cut. It just, the wood eventually rotted away, and the surviving part is kind of rolling around, and it's, I think someday far into the future this will roll around and be pretty well invisible. I found, you know, all the other pruning scars on the yuccas heal over quite well. I've got all the trees separated, so I'll put them in my tub of water, rinse off the old soil, and then we'll come back for the root pruning. I've got one of the smaller trees out, and I'm going to begin the root pruning. So the first thing I want to do is remove the roots on the bottom here. Otherwise it kind of keeps lifting the trees out of the pot. So I'll keep my radial roots and get rid of the ones sticking down. So here I go. Kind of flattening out the root base on the bottom. The pot I'm putting them in isn't, you know, a very deep pot, so I need to get them quite, the root base quite shallow. So you can see that's sitting much better now. And then I'll do a profile prune to the roots, keeping them compact because I have to fit 5 trees in that pot. Like that. I wonder if I should try and go even more shallow on the bottom. I think so. That's about as shallow as I can get the root base. It's down to the wood of the trunk now. And they're fairly compact. So I think that'll do for tree number 1. Now I do want to clean the tree up. So this tree had aphids on it in the winter time. And I've sprayed it when I brought them out in spring, and that seems to have gotten rid of the aphid problem. Might be a little bit of scale on it too, so I'll definitely, you know, respray the trees and clean them up. I'm just removing all the dead leaves here. Now the dead leaves can look quite nice on the trees. You see them in nature, you know, the fresh new green growth surrounded by the dead leaves, but I am going to clean them up today. Yeah, you can see the leaves are kind of covered in black stuff from aphids, scale. It seems to all come off easily. I don't think there's any insects living on the trees anymore, but they definitely, all the leaves could use a wash, so I will have to do that. And to do that, I just get a wet cloth. And you have to be careful. The leaves on these yuccas, the edges of them are like razor blades. They have little, well, they're more like a fine saw. They have little serrations, and if you were to run your hand along the edge of one of these leaves, it would cut it open like a paper cut. So you have to be kind of careful. Well, I think that'll do for now, and then when I get them potted up, I'll work on cleaning the leaves up even more. And they do drop aerial roots, these yuccas. You can see there's an aerial root coming out here. But I find generally, even if they reach the soil, they eventually kind of dry up and they don't, you know, stay healthy like ficus roots. You can see there's a stub here where I pruned it last. You have 2 choices. You can, you know, prune it back to make it flush, or you can just let it heal over naturally, and you'll get kind of a lumpy appearance to the tree. So I don't think I want to take this cut back, because if I do, then it's starting a new scar that could die back. So I'm just going to leave it as it is. All these stumps on it. So this tree is ready to be planted. So I've got 4 more trees to root prune. So I'll work on those. And I'll put this one back in the water until I'm ready. The next tree I'm going to work on is this larger Yucca. This is the second largest in the planting. So I will start underneath here and start pruning away Well, it's cooled down to 40 degrees in the greenhouse here. So we've had a thunderstorm, 4 thunderstorms in 4 days with intense rain. And there's a possibility of another one this afternoon. So it's very, very hot and humid. And I know compared to some countries, this isn't hot. Someone in the comments said they had a high of, I think it was 54. And that was in, was it the Philippines, I think? I think it was the Philippines. Yeah, that's pretty intense heat. But I am getting more used to the heat. Like today, it's 40 degrees in the greenhouse here, and with the fan going, it's not too bad. It's actually quite comfortable. And last night it cooled down to, I think it got down to 26 degrees Celsius, and it actually felt quite refreshing and cool, which is hard to believe. It's looking better. I'm going to do some more profile pruning now that I've got some of these roots combed out. Okay, and then I'll continue to work away at the bottom, reducing the height of the root base on the bottom. I think I'm down to the wood there, so I can't go much lower. Yeah, I think that's about it for that tree. I think it's ready to plant. Now I do have to clean up the top of the tree also. You can see there's a lot of dead leaves on it. So I'll pull those all off, starting with the lowest ones and working up the trunk. And if they're too tough to pull off, you can just cut them off with scissors. So that tree's ready for planting. And the nice thing about separating the trees is that you can rotate them around, find the best front for the tree. You can rearrange the trees in the planting, because trees are always changing, and as they grow they can, look different together. So rearranging your forest, you can always find the best fronts for the trees and the best arrangement. And the design just evolves over the years. As long as you keep your critical eye looking out for the design of the forest, it'll improve. Yeah, so there's the woody trunk, so I'm right down there. Okay, back into the water this one goes. Now I won't show you the other trees, the root pruning and cleanup. We'll just come back for the planting, because it'll all be very similar to what I did on this tree. I've now got all the trees root pruned, cleaned up, and they're ready for planting. I just remembered this isn't a Japanese pot, it's a Chinese pot. They went to China and he brought this back on the airplane with him. So I'll get my drainage screens in the pot here, get a base layer of soil, and then I'll start arranging the trees. All right, in goes the base layer of soil. So I'll just put a layer on the bottom of the pot, which will take a fair amount of soil. So I don't want too thick a base layer, because I don't want the trees sticking up out of the pot. I want them fairly low in the pot. So I'm going to try it at that and see what height the trees come in at. I've got my largest tree here, so I'm going to place that in position first, once I get this cord off there. So the front of the tree was always here, so I'm just rotating it around, looking at it to see if there's any better front to it. It's not bad there. It looks really, really wide at the root base. And I noticed that this hollowed trunk from the original cut, there's a hole in the bottom of the root base here that goes right up through the trunk, so water can drain out of there. Interesting feature. I don't think I want
you know, this to the front of the planting. It's just not healed over and ready yet. Yeah, so I'm leaning towards something like that. Look pretty good. So if that were to go about here. So here is tree number 2. These trees are looking really big. Like, I'm barely fitting 2 trees in the pot. Well, maybe I can't have this tree rotated like that. Maybe I've got to go back more to my original front. And this tree, it has kind of 2 divisions here. This is the thicker one, so I'd want that forward. But it would be nice to kind of see both trunks. I don't know which. Probably about there would be the front. That's somewhere close to where it was. I think these 2 trees were closer together. Kind of mesh the roots together a bit. Let me just put some soil under this tree to get it up straight. I have got my other 3 trees. So this is the largest of them. And I believe I had that planted in this back corner. Somewhere there. And then these 2 are pretty close to being the same, but I mean, they could go something like that. I know I had more of an open space here originally. I rotated this tree a bit, and I rotated this one a little less. I've kind of rearranged the trees just slightly to get a more balanced composition. So I'm just stepping back now, having a look at the composition, making sure this is what I want. I have a bit of a problem, is that this main tree here, the tree beside it is almost exactly the same height. This one needs to be a little shorter than the main tree. So I can do that with pruning eventually, once the trees have recovered from repotting and are growing nicely. I can't do a whole lot with that now unless, you know, I were to raise one tree up in the pot. I'll try and, you know, get this second tree here as low as I can get it when I go to plant it. But I think overall I'm happy with the composition. I don't think I can get it much better. I could maybe pull this second tree back in the planting further. I think they look a bit too in line right now. But other than that, I think that's as good as it gets. So I'll make some adjustments and we'll take a final look at it. Here is a look at the composition now. So I made a few adjustments. I moved the second tree back further in the planting. I twisted a couple of these trees just to tweak the front of them a bit. It's important that you get the composition as close to perfection as you can, because you'll have to live with this composition until you go to repot the trees once again. And then, you know, the last time I repotted these trees was 7 years ago, so I may have to live with this forest for another, well, maybe 5 years this time. So it's kind of important that you like the composition and you know, have it tweaked as best that you can. So I'm wondering if I can push the main tree back further in the planting and the second tree. I'm going to try it. They just feel a little close to the front of the pot for me. So can I get this back further? I think so. Just to give a little more space up front, and then this one can definitely come back also. More like that. Yeah, that feels more comfortable in the pot. It has a little more room. It doesn't look like it's jammed too far to the front. Now, if I were to turn this around, you might say, well, it's jammed a little too far to the back, but that's the back of the planting, and that's the reason it's the back of the planting, is that you don't normally see it from the back. So, again, I'm going to take a final look And hopefully this time all is good and I can start adding soil.
Here's a look at the composition now. So you may not be able to see all these little tweaks I've done on camera. It's something that you might have to see in 3D. But yeah, so I think it's made progress, the composition. I think it's looking quite comfortable in the pot. I don't think it's that far off of what I had. Okay, I'm happy with that. I think I'm going to start adding soil. Here's just a quick fly-in so you can see it in 3D. What's happening with the roots and the position in the pot. Yeah. I'm going to start to add the soil in around the roots now. So here I go. And maybe some more back here. So that's it for the soil. Now I better just have a look at the planting. Making sure all is well. You know. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm going to give the planting a watering now. All right, here I go with the water now. Get these trees all watered in. Okay, I think that will do. Let's fly in now and have a look at the Yucca forest. I've got my yucca trees all root pruned and repotted and repositioned. So the next step is just to let them grow, recover, generate more roots there under the soil. And I'll have to clean off all the leaves. I didn't see any active insects on it. I think they're just looking not so good from overwintering when it had some scale on it and it had the aphids on it. So yeah, I'll just have to clean up the forest. And I'll have to do some landscaping in the future, so the work isn't done on this forest yet, but that is all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.